Hey, good morning. If you're just joining us or if you're new to this Gathering Point, I just want to let you know where we're at. We've been exploring the book of Proverbs, and we just have a couple days left because we've been reading one proverb through the end of the month, and as David said, we'll be transitioning to Christmas next week. But we wanted to finish up with the book of Proverbs, and there's just a few days left, and we've been reading one proverb every day throughout the month of November. And so we've decided to do this because we've all realized that there has to be a deeper way of living and making decisions that's better than just like a feeling, right? Some of you have already started in on your Christmas list. Some of you have already started in on your Christmas shopping. And isn't it true? Some of the decisions are, well, I feel like this would be a good present for it, right? Now, there's problems when we make our decisions based off of feelings, isn't there? We kind of get off track. We have made decisions, then we have guilt, we have regret, we have buyer's remorse, but it felt like we should have done this. So some of us have employed different strategies, which is pros and cons lists, where we've said, all right, let's come up with all the pros, let's come up with the cons, and we've used that to kind of try to help us make decisions. But the problem with that is it never usually gets us all the way to where we want to go. And so, yeah, we can ask ourselves, can I afford it? And that may give you a yes answer or a no answer. Does it fit into my calendar? Yes or no. But isn't it true? We've stuck stuff in our calendar and we look back on that and went, what was I thinking? And it looked like you had 5 minutes to drive across town and you could make it work, but you forgot about traffic and stoplights. And then you get there and you're like, I can't believe we did that. And you're so frustrated by this. There's things that this week we probably made decisions based off of feelings when it came to eating, right? Can I eat more? Yes. Is it wise? Well, I don't know. That's for you to determine on those kinds of things. And so then you have regret because some of you had a food coma at about 4 o'clock on Thursday. And so this is why we've turned to Solomon, who's widely regarded throughout all of history as one of the wisest people who's ever lived. And we wanted to tap into this because he has said that wisdom takes you beyond knowledge. Wisdom takes us beyond what you know. So, is there clear-cut information about exercise? Yes. Is there clear-cut information about diet? Yes. Is there clear-cut information about your budget and your calendar? Yes. We know all of those things. Can we YouTube videos? Absolutely. Can we look at TikTok? Sure. You can look at all those things to figure out how to do stuff, how to gain knowledge. Can you take a class? Can you get a degree? Can you do all those things? Yes. But Solomon says that's only going to take you so far. You need to employ wisdom, which is a different form of this. And wisdom, he says this, is supreme. Wisdom is supreme. Therefore, you should get wisdom, which is the tuition for it is a lot. It's going to cost you everything you have to get this level of understanding. And the word he uses here is a Hebrew word, and it literally means skilled living. Wisdom means to not just live, but to live with skill, which I'm going to tell you right now, and some of you have already experienced it this month. That takes your level of living to a different thing, and it separates you from others. It doesn't make you better than others, but it puts you in a different category. Because it's not what you can process and understand with your brain. It's your ability to apply with skill strategies and implementations that will make your life work better than it used to. So we've employed a new question. Not just can I afford it? Would they like it? Should we get it? Should we do it? Should we go there? Should we stay up that late, right? Should we continue on our phone? All those things. We said, yeah, but yes and no, the answer is yes or no, won't get me to where I want to go because I can manipulate yes. I can manipulate no. So we've added another question, which is, yes, I can do it, or no, I shouldn't, but is it wise? Is it wise for me to do that? And we've also found that that's a very annoying question. And if you don't think it's annoying, ask it to your kids. When they say, hey, can we do this? Can we do that? And be like, well, you can, but is it wise? Without question, they're going to go, oh, man, come on. Seriously, right? And so is the decision that I'm about to make, is it wise? Can I do it? Probably. Should I do it? Maybe. But is it wise? And that's kind of the thing that dilutes and pulls the string out to begin to go. So we've been looking at Proverbs, and as we've been reading Proverbs, we found quickly that there are a couple different characters, people, scenarios that kind of lift off the page. And we've been looking at them. And so one is the simple person, the other's the fool, then you have the mocker and the wise. And simple people, they just don't have enough life experience. It's not that they're dumb. It's not that they got a bad test grade. It's not that their SAT scores were low. That has nothing to do with simple people. It's just that they often learn stuff the hard way because they just don't know. They haven't experienced it. A couple weeks ago when we started the series, I told you about a story about me and a skid loader at the house we lived at in Virginia, and it was the first house Aaron and I had ever owned, and it was a good deal. And I think it was a good deal because the house was literally on land that was like a 45-degree angle in the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. It was like on the side of it wasn't a full mountain, but it was a heck of a hill, right? The driveway was on a 45-degree angle. I used to ride the trash can down to the to the road. So when we bought the house, there was a couple things. The people who sold us the house, they moved to San Diego, so they didn't want to take everything with them. So they sold us the washer and dryer for $1, which I was like, yeah, that seems wise. And then they also sold us a lawnmower for $1, which I didn't have a lawnmower, so that was great. So we got this lawnmower, and the first time that we start to go, I start mowing this land, and it's like a third of an acre on the side of a daggum hill. And so I'm mowing this thing, and I start mowing, and I'm dying, like dying. Finished the lawn, took me forever. I come in the house, and I tell Aaron something like this, like, we're moving. One of us has to go. It's either me or the yard, but this ain't gonna work. It's just not gonna work. Unfortunately, it rained and it grew, and I had to go out and do it again, and I started in on this thing, and man, I have such a bad attitude. I'm saying things in my head, maybe even out loud, I don't know, that just should never be repeated. I'm just angry, I'm frustrated, I'm mad, and I'm pushing, and you're pushing this thing up a hill. Literally up a hill. And then I decide to go sideways. That doesn't help anything. It's still a mess. And then I'm so frustrated. I get a drink. I go back out to mow it. And I look at this thing and I go, I wonder what this bar does. Oh, you weren't 20? Oh, that's cute. Yeah. And I grab this bar and the mower takes off. And I went, I didn't even know mowers could do that. And I squeezed this thing, and I realized this thing, and I learned about self-propelled mowers all in one moment. That's what it means to be simple. You just don't know what you don't know. You just don't have the experience to know what it is to know. And we've all been there, whether it is finances, we've been there, maybe it's cooking, maybe it's your job, and you just didn't know. And there's a simplicity to what you know and don't know that isn't your fault. It's just you don't know what you don't know. And people will say, hey, well, you could get this job if you had more experience. And you'd say, yeah, I know. I just don't have any experience. I didn't know that bar was a magical wand of God that was a gift put on the engineering planet here. I didn't know. I just didn't know. I haven't forgotten, right? And I'll never buy a lawnmower that doesn't have one, because they're wonderful. But it's one of those things where you just don't know. That's the simple. And then the foolish people are totally different. They do know, they just don't want to ask for help because they think they're smarter. They just think they know it all. They're foolish because they do it anyway. I know that's probably not good, but I'm going to do it anyway. I know that's not what I need to do, but I'm going to do it anyway. I know I shouldn't buy it, but I want it, right? I know I shouldn't eat that, but I'm going to. You know why? Because it tastes good, and I want to. And they really want to, and they'll do stuff, they buy stuff, they get stuff, and they know it's wrong, but they do it anyway. And the Bible says those people, they're just foolish. And then the mockers. Mockers are a special breed because not only do they think they're right, they tell others about how right they are, and they use their comments to punish others, and they usually think they're helping someone by being sarcastic or blunt. Here's what a mocker looks like. They say stuff like, well, somebody needed to say it. I just figured it'd be me. And they usually have someone following them around that goes, you just need to get to know them. They're kind of harsh at first, but if you get to know them, they're a good person. And you're going, no, they're not. That's a jerk, right? And mockers tend to do that. They scheme. They come up with crazy plots. They're trying to always figure out how to not beat the system, to beat people, right? How to beat somebody at some stuff. And they come up with all kinds of things, and they think their outbursts are helping. And so today I want to focus on the fourth category as we wrap up this series today, which is actually those people who are wise. Because wise people have special characteristics and qualities. They do things that the other people don't do. And this is what sets them apart. And Solomon says when you kind of begin to live wisely, you're moving beyond those other pieces. And you begin to pick up some pieces in your life to begin to change. And wise people do this now. They've been practicing it for so long. They do this without thinking. This becomes second nature for wise people, what we're about ready to dive into today. Because this is not something that they all came, pre-programmed with. This is something they've all been working at. They've been trying at it. In fact, for most of them, when they started doing the things that Solomon said, the wise characteristics, it felt awkward. It felt inauthentic. It felt weird even saying some of the things at first because they're like, this just doesn't feel natural. And so they've grown it into a lifestyle, though. And this is the thing that wise people do that may come as a surprise to you, may not. Wise people understand honor and respect. I know for many of you, you're like, well, isn't that like a kindergarten thing that you learn how to, treat others, all that kind of stuff? And you would think that, but I think we don't hear much about honor anymore. And quite honestly, I think honor and respect may be on the endangered species list if you've been on social media ever. And so, yes, the word honor, we get it when it starts in the Ten Commandments, where we hear about children honoring their parents as something that is a practice. But honor's close cousin is respect, and they kind of work together. And both of these words seem to be something that we need to employ. And so when we get to Proverbs, it says, those who are wise, they're able to do something that other people just don't intuitively do. And it's honor and respect. And it starts when you're young. You can learn this earlier when you're young. And this is what it says, Proverbs chapter 10, verse 1. The proverb of Solomon, a wise son brings joy to his father, but a foolish son brings grief to his mother. Now, I don't understand the split here and, why mom gets all the grief and dad gets all the honor. I don't understand that one, and we're not going to peel that apart because I just don't want to deal with the email on this one. So that's just wise on my part, I think. So as we look at this, it says this is what wise people do. And you can begin when you're young, but even if you're not young anymore, this is still something that you employ. And he says, look, honor her. This is something that we learn for women at the end of Proverbs, and this one's coming up here. We'll get to this one this week. Honor her, honor women for all that her hands have done, and let her works bring her praise at the city gate. And so while this is often given in the context of child-to-parent relationship, it extends to all areas of your life. It extends to your work. It extends to your friendships. It extends to your relationships. And it's shown in the context of marriage, and it's shown in the context of family. Because to honor someone is to value, to show worth, and to give weight to them as a person. Because to dishonor someone is to take them lightly. So honor begins with acknowledging God's claim on someone's life. Honor begins, it has nothing to do with their performance. It has nothing to do with their skills. It has nothing to do with their extrinsic value to you, to your organization, to your family. This is not earned. This is something that's given because God created them. Romans says it this way. And those he predestined in Romans chapter 8, and those he predestined, he also called, and those he called, he justified, and those he justified, he also glorified. Meaning, if you were created, and if you're breathing, and if you eat, and you walk, and you go around living, that God has thought about you, cared about you, and he also thinks that other people should do the same to you. And we don't honor people because we think they deserve it. We honor them because God loves them, and we ought to love the things that God loves. And honoring, ironically, doesn't just benefit the person you honor, it benefits yourself too, because when you honor, it's a way that helps you enjoy your life. It's a reminder that everything in your life isn't about you, and you can't do life alone. Ephesians chapter 6 says this, I think this is great. It says, honor your father and your mother, which is the first commandment, with a promise that it may go well with you. And listen to this. That you may enjoy a long life on the earth. How do you have a long life on the earth? How do you do that? Honor. Honor those around you. Honor your mother, your father, your siblings, your employees. Because honor is given. It isn't forced. If honor's forced, and if you're barking and saying, you need to respect me, you need to honor me, well, guess what? You've just crossed the line into manipulation and guilt. You can't make someone, you can't make someone honor somebody else. You can't do it. And this is what wise people understand. They freely do it. 1 Peter says this. 1 Peter chapter 2 says, submit yourself for the Lord's sake to every authority instituted among men, whether it be to the king as the supreme authority or to governors who are sent by him to punish those who do wrong, condemn those who do right, commend those who do right. For it's God's will that by doing good you should silence the ignorant talk of foolish men. How? By honoring others, you actually silence foolish people. Live as free men, but do not use your freedom as a cover-up for evil. Live as servants of God. Show proper respect to everyone. Love the brotherhood of the believers. Fear God. Honor the king. Honor one another. So Romans chapter 12 goes back and he says, you need to be devoted to one another in brotherly love. Honor one another above yourself. Now this theme is repeated over and over and over in the Bible. So the question then becomes, how do we do this? How do we live wise? How do we create habits that begin to show what does this look like beyond just like, oh, I should honor someone? What does it actually look like? I mean, it sounds simple, but it's going to take a lot of intentionality. And so one of the things it does is wise people have figured out how to prioritize their life. They've figured out how to prioritize their life. It was so interesting when we took the survey here at Gathering Point, we took the survey at the church, like 91% of the people who took the survey said that God was the highest priority in their life, which was so interesting because 20% like prayed and read their Bible. See the disconnect there? See the disconnect? Wise people prioritize their life. They just don't say, oh, my family's so important to me, but they never spend time with their family, right? It doesn't make sense. Oh, God's the most important thing in my life, but then they don't prioritize the way that they live. And so wise people get this, and they prioritize their life, and they honor the Lord with their wealth and with their first fruits of all their crops. Now, when we talk about giving here, and I know Mark talked a little bit about this last week, when we talk about giving here at Gathering Point, we think in a couple different avenues. First off, we give towards specific needs. Be rich, we give towards needs. The Christmas card that's in the back of your chairs, specific needs. Night to Shine, specific needs. Those things make a difference. Then there's a second category of giving that's all about priority. It's not about need. And it's not about like, oh, I'm giving so that they may. It's giving so that you are authentic. So we get asked this question a lot, like, hey, especially by people who are new, and if you've ever thought this, don't feel weird or awkward about this. People ask us all the time. So like when we do offerings and stuff, and how much do you give? Like, is that like a $50 message? Is it like a $20 message? Like, how does that work? And I don't mean that as a joke because then we get asked that question a lot. And that's not the wrong way. It's not like giving, it's not like goods and services. That's not what you're giving. It's giving out of priority. And what it is it says you're giving the first 10% of what you earn and you're prioritizing that's God's. And because God has given you everything in your life that this begins to be the way that you live. And it's a priority thing. Now, this causes tension and friction. When I was 15 and a half years old, I went up to my dad that we had a room in our house that my mom made a theme room. Are we still doing theme rooms? I don't know if we are or not. It was a long time ago. There were theme rooms, and this was like the birdhouse room. Why? There was just like 4 or 5 birdhouses, and like I don't even know. I don't even like birds, but whatever. I heard that comes with time. The older you get, you start to like them, and then you look at something like, oh, look at that, and you can name it and all this. But I'm not there yet. So anyway, there was this birdhouse room, and I went up, and my dad had the checkbook out, and he's at his desk, and he's writing checks out. And we had just been having conversations about me getting an automobile, a car. And he told me repeatedly that they can't afford to have a car. And then I saw him writing out a check to the church. And we had a disagreement, also known as an argument. I said, Dad, what are you doing? He said, I'm writing out my tithe check first. I said, why? Well, that's just what we do. What do we get for that? That's not what we get. It's about prioritizing our life. We don't know the benefit that all this makes. It's not about what we get. It's about me prioritizing what we're doing. And I said, well, you've been lying to me. You said we can't get a car. You clearly can. He goes, no. Oh, I'm so sorry. You can't afford a car. This is my commitment, a priority to our Heavenly Father. And so when we begin to reprioritize our life, it has nothing to do with those pieces. It's about my reflecting and my priorities matching up with the way that I'm living. And so wise people have this down. And here's how they know they have this down. Their calendars and their checkbooks line up with what they say is important in their life. It reflects their priorities. Here's the next thing. Wise people have the ability to praise others. They have the ability to celebrate others. They don't make excuses. They praise people. James says this, chapter 3, verse 9. With the tongue we praise our Lord and Father, and with it we curse men, and we have been made in God's likeness. Out of the same mouth comes praising and cursing. My brothers, this should not be. A couple years ago, I have a really good friend who was a colonel in the Army, and I just asked him, we were together one time, and I just loved asking him questions because like the Army and all that, I just like a whole world I just didn't understand, but I respected. And I said, hey, Joe, I got a question for you. You know, the American Army is pretty good, right? He goes, yeah, I hope so. Okay. What's the greatest weakness to the United States Army? And he paused for a second because I was thinking like, does some other country have some awesome weapon, or is there some other country that we should be afraid of? That's how I was asking the question. And he said, well, the greatest enemy to the American army is pity. Joe, simple. You're going to have to explain that to me. And he says, here's the thing. He says that the greatest thing we can do for our military is honor them. Which is why you've been taught and I've been taught to tell those who have served, thank you for your service, right? Well, what the greatest weakness, he said, to the American Army is pity. When people say, I just don't know how you do what you do. I don't know how you can do deployments. I don't know how you're able to go and do all that stuff. He says, pity is the greatest weakness because the moment we accept pity, we start feeling sorry for ourselves. That's the greatest weakness to the United States military. Honor is what makes us strong when we are valued. But the moment we start to take and believe pity, we'll feel like what we're doing isn't honorable, but now it's something. And so this is why honor and gratitude is placing someone above yourself. This is why when people go through hard weeks and hard times, and some of you have just gone through some really hard times, you don't go to people and say, oh, I just don't know how you did that. I don't know how you suffered that tragedy. Instead, we say to them, we say to teachers, first responders, we say to parents, policemen, grandparents, even people that are waiting on us, we say, thank you. I know you're going through a difficult time and you're handling it so well. We don't offer pity, we offer honor. Wise people understand that. They get that because they see that this is a moment where they don't make it about themselves and, oh, I just don't know how I'd be able to do that. They flip it and say, what you're doing and the way that you're handling it and the way you're going about this is so honoring. You're doing it so well. And they honor people. You honor people when you leave a tip at a restaurant. You honor people when you leave a comment that begins to point out something that somebody's done good. And wise people, the kind of people that Solomon says, who are living just at a whole different level, they get this. And they've had to practice it. Because the first time they started letting honor drip out, it felt weird. I'm not. Because isn't it true for many of you? When's the line when you're old enough to give somebody else honor? Because it feels weird sometimes. You're like, I don't think it'd be weird if I said I'm proud of you and they're like 20 years older than me, right? I mean, that's weird. Honor says you practice this and you give honor its due. And then the third thing that I think is really wise and helpful to us is wise people understand that they protect others with their words. And this is really tricky. They protect. John says this, he who speaks on his own does so to gain honor for himself, but he who works for the honor of the one who sent him is a man of truth. There is nothing false about him. Now this one's real tricky, and this one I want to spend a little bit of time on because it's very complicated. When I first started out in youth ministry, I worked for one of the most emotionally intuitive leaders I have ever met. And I mean that in a positive way. He could just sort of sense things. He could sort of sense things, and he had these uncanny instincts. And as a young 20-year-old, I had opinions. And I thought it was weird. Even though I respected it, I thought it was weird. And I would come, and here's the thing, I thought I was right. And I would constantly come home, and I'd come home from work, and I'd go to Aaron, and I would say, man, I don't know why we're doing this. This is so weird. This is dumb. We should be doing this. We should try this, and we should be doing this, and oh, that was terrible, and I can't believe we did this. And I said all that kind of stuff, and I just kind of got in this habit that I would come home every day, and I would share my frustration with my wife, and I would say, I can't believe we're doing this. I don't know why we're doing this. I don't understand how they thought that would be a good idea. And I would come home, and I would just kind of share that. And after a year, he called me into his office, and he said, are you happy here? And I said, yeah, I did. I liked it. I really enjoyed working there. I thought it was good. I really liked the church. I really liked the people. I was learning a ton. He sat me down, and he says, then why are you killing me at home? Excuse me, what? He says, yeah, your wife doesn't look me in the eyes on Sunday. She hadn't said anything. She liked the guy. It wasn't on her. She did. She says, you won't look me in the eyes. It means you're killing me at home. Boy, was I embarrassed. So embarrassed. He was right. I was ruining a relationship because of my frustration, and I was becoming toxic by just coming home and sharing frustration day after day after day. I've used that so many times in my life. I always know how staff's doing. Not by what they say, by whether their spouse can look me in the eyes, or their roommate, or their, close friends. Because this is the call, and this is why this is so tricky, because it's a protection. It's a protection, and wise people understand this. Wise people understand honor. Now, honor does not mean agree with everything. That would be foolish. Honor doesn't mean that you're just not going to speak up. Honor means that you do it in such a way that brings everyone's value up. And I didn't get that. And man, I'll never forget that he cared enough about me to say, hey, sat right across the desk from me and says, you're killing me at home. And I was like, wait a second, how did you, I wanted to go into excuse mode, right? Wait, what? It was true. It was true. And these are the things that wise people do. They understand that they have a responsibility. They know not to just be takers. They know to be givers. They know to be generous with their words and with their actions, generous with their resources. They have found that when they utilize and ask the question of, is it wise? They realize that when they protect other people, here's maybe the greatest thing you can understand about protect. Protection does not mean protect someone from the boogeyman, right? That's not protection. Protecting doesn't mean that we bulk up on our security systems. That's not protection. Protection means that you protect those around you from you. That's what wise people get. They understand that what you're protecting other people around you from is you. Your outburst, your attitudes, your views on things that just may not add value. And they realize, wise people realize, that when you talk about protecting others, you're protecting them from you. You are far more terrifying to the people that are close to you than the boogeyman. Is this on? Man, it's quiet. You are. And wise people understand this. They have begun to live at a different level from their peers, not because they're better. They've just leaned in and they realize that there is a different way to live that they can be a part of. And one of the key things that they get is honor and respect, which seems so elementary. But you know that it's been struggling in here. And they get ahead. They get ahead at home. They get ahead in their careers. They get ahead in work. They get ahead not because of their competence. They get ahead because they have wisdom. And wisdom is always the most valuable thing to any family, to any organization, to any workplace. And no wonder Solomon has leaned into us and said, you should get some, and it shouldn't matter what it costs you. And so none of us are here today because of our accomplishments. None of you got to where you are in your career because you're accomplished, all these kinds of things. There is a baseline knowledge component, no doubt. But those who go to the next level learn how to employ wisdom into what they do. I mean, for those of you who own businesses, wouldn't you just love to have a whole bunch of wise people apply for jobs to work for you? But wouldn't you love to have coworkers that you're just like, man, I am surrounded by all these wise people. It's just unbelievable, right? Because what have you gotten sucked into lately? What do you say? Man, we got idiots everywhere. Right? I mean, I hear it all the time. Like someone, they went to this store, they went to that store, they went to this restaurant, and they went to this place, and they're like, oh my word, it's Idiotville. Wouldn't it be great if right here we started this whole new movement that yes, you have to know how to do certain things, but we unleashed wisdom that comes from God into our community, into our homes. And someone came before us, and someone is going to come after us, and we want to be wise in how we do that. So today as we close, the band's going to come out, and we're going to sing a song together. And while we do that, I want you to think in those areas in your life, and maybe you can protect, or maybe you can employ wisdom and get some pieces, get straight before we head into Christmas. Because wouldn't it be great if your holidays had a little bit more wisdom than last year? Maybe financially, maybe your calendar, maybe relationally. And so today, maybe you just need to go light a candle. And I know that's new for some of you. If you grew up in a liturgical background, you're like, oh, candles, I get it. If you didn't grow up in that background, you're like, what is that? I understand. It just simply means I just need God's light to be a part of some areas in my life that seem kind of dark right now. Others of you, there's paper in the back of your chairs, and there's also some over there. You just may want to write out a prayer request, and we as a staff pray with you each and every week for these requests, and you just want to write down some things that, I need some wisdom in this area of my life, and I just need help, and I need to see some things differently. I need to see people differently, and you may want to pin that to the cross today. And others, you may want to take communion. We have communion there, and during the holidays, we'll take it together, but this morning you can go and take the cup and take it back to your seat and take the bread and take the cup and just remember that Christ died for you. Your value is who you are because of who your Heavenly Father created you to be, not what those around you have said. And then for all of us, let's figure out this morning before we leave, let's take the 4 or 5 minutes that this song takes to figure out how can I practice, just try honoring someone today. And it may feel weird, and they may look at you and go, thanks. That's okay. It's okay. It's weird for them too, probably. But you're never going to cross the hurdle into wisdom until you make honor and respect a regular part of your lifestyle. Let me pray with you. Father, this morning, as we respond to you, we want to have our priorities and our tongue and our mind and our hearts reflect the values that you have created and established in the world in which you created. So would you help us to respond to you today? We love you. Amen.
Thanks so much for joining us at Gathering Point. If this is your first time, be sure to text GPGuest to 97000 and be sure to hit like and subscribe so you can be the first to know about everything happening here at Gathering Point. Have a great week.